Good morning and welcome to Market Cafe with me Ankur Mishra and Kanishka Sarkar. In next 1 hour we will bring you all the news and updates that matters to you before opening of market. But let's get started with an eye on the globe. Kanishka, good morning. How were US markets yesterday?
Very good morning, Ankur. In fact, Dow posted its first losing session in 5 yesterday, ending about 0.2% lower. The S&P 500, on the other hand, ended just about flat, whereas the Nasdaq Composite, that gained 0.3%. This comes as the private sector payrolls data came out in the US yesterday, and it rose by just about 37,000 in May, coming in sharply below the Dow Jones forecast of 110,000 and raising investors' worries about the softening job market and also the impact of it on the economy. Those concerns weighed on the major averages during the session as well. However, the market's recent gains, which have been powered by a surge in technology stocks coupled with a blowout first quarter earnings season, have sort of revived the sentiment on Wall Street. However, investors do remain cautious that further pain could be ahead due to Trump's administration's tariffs. Now, today, if you look at what the investors in US will be watching out for, it's the weekly jobless claims data, and tomorrow big payrolls report will be the main event in terms of economic data. Now, if you look at the weekly moves, the three major indexes are tracking gains so far this week. The S&P 500 is up about 2%, the Dow has added 0.4%, whereas the tech-heavy Nasdaq index, that has jumped almost 2% a week to date. But how are things looking on the crude front?
Crude was reeling in under pressure, and why it has happened because Saudi wants the Organization of Petroleum and Exporting Countries, that is OPEC, and its allies to continue to add at least 411,000 barrels a day of output in next month, that is in August and September. Remember, in the last month also a similar kind of call was taken, and therefore you would have seen that Brent was trading around $65. Actually, it came below $65, and WTI came below $63, and this happened after 2 to 3 days of gain. But if you talk about gold, that traded near $3,375 an ounce, up around 0.6%. After separate reports showed a contraction in US service providers and a deceleration in hiring.
Now, Donald Trump is reviving one of the most controversial policies of his presidency, a sweeping travel ban affecting over a dozen nations. Now, starting Monday, when the reciprocal tariffs also come into effect, citizens from 12 countries, including Iran, Somalia, Afghanistan and Libya, will be barred from entering the US. Now, the new order also places stricter entry limits on visitors from another 7 countries. Now, Trump says that this move is needed to protect national security, citing a report on hostile attitudes towards America. Now, critics say it echoes the 2017 Muslim ban, which triggered chaos and legal backlash during his first term as well.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump is once again turning up the heat on Fed Chair Jerome Powell, demanding immediate rate cuts after a weak ADP jobs report. Private payrolls rose just 37,000 in May, well below expectations, prompting Trump to post, "Too late, Powell must now lower the rate." Calling Powell unbelievable, Trump slammed the Fed for falling behind Europe, which has already cut the rates 9 times. The confrontation follows a tense White House meeting between the two last week. All eyes will be now there on Friday's official job report from the Labor Department. Now, Trump has also said that he spoke with Russian President Putin over an hour discussing Ukraine's recent airstrike on Russian bombers and Iran's nuclear ambitions. Trump called it a good conversation, but warned it won't bring immediate peace. He says Putin strongly hinted at retaliation for Ukraine's surprise attack, which reportedly hit over 40 Russian aircraft. The two also talked Iran, with Trump's warning that Tehran's nuclear decision must be made very quickly. The Kremlin confirmed the call as Ukraine war enters the 4th year.
That's right. Now, moving on, tensions are also mounting between Washington and Beijing, as Trump has called it extremely hard to strike a deal with China's Xi Jinping. Now, the Trump's blunt remarks come as the White House signals the two leaders may speak this week to break the deadlock over trade talks. Now, China's foreign minister has urged the U.S. To meet China halfway. But frustrations run high, especially over tariffs, tech curbs, and also rare earth restrictions. Now, Trump says that he still likes Xi, but warns that the Chinese president is, and I quote, very tough and hard to negotiate with.
Yes, and U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick actually called certain probes essential to reviving U.S. manufacturing and protecting key industries like aerospace. He said U.S. will set tariff decisions on aircraft imports by month end, and that is a part of a broader review. During a Senate testimony, Lutnick called over $300 billion has now been committed under CHIPS Act, and he pushed back against reciprocal tariff cuts, especially with countries like Vietnam, which he criticized for trade imbalances and reliance on Chinese supply chains.
All right, moving on to some comments coming in from Elon Musk. Now, he is going scorched earth on Donald Trump's tax cut bill a day after calling it a disgusting abomination. He is urging lawmakers to kill the bill. Now, Musk says the plan would add $5 trillion to the deficit and plunge the U.S. into debt slavery. The Tesla CEO has fired off over 24 posts slamming the bill on X just days after he's stepping down as the Trump's government efficiency group. Now, White House is reportedly surprised. Now, Trump is said to be disappointed but still fully backing the bill.
And moving on, the U.S. economy shrank slightly over the past 6 weeks with hiring stagnation and inflation expectations rising. According to the latest Federal Reserve wage book, the report cited elevated economic uncertainty and tariff-related price hike as key reasons for the slowdown. While inflation remains moderate, most businesses now expect costs to rise faster, and many plan to pass on these costs within 3 months. Labor demanded softened with reports of reduced hours, hiring freezes, and some layoffs.
All right, then moving on, the U.S. has vetoed a United Nations Security Council resolution calling for an immediate permanent ceasefire in Gaza. It was the only member to vote against the proposal, with 14 others in favor. The U.S. envoy said that the draft failed to condemn Hamas for the demand disarmament. Israel, continuing its offensive, rejected any ceasefire that Hamas stay in Gaza. The U.S. and Israel are now backing a controversial private aid operation amid sharp criticism of blocked UN relief and worsening famine risk.
Keeping an eye on the globe, Pakistan has secured an $800 million bailout package from Asian Development Bank despite strong objections from India. New Delhi raised concerns over potential misuse of funds, citing Pakistan's history of terror financing and rising defense spending. The ADP package, aimed at boosting fiscal sustainability, follows a recent $1 billion IMF loan to Pakistan, is also contested by India. The Indian government vehemently opposed the Asian Development Bank's $800 million financing package for Pakistan. Why is ADB turning a blind eye? Prakash is joining with more details.
Yes, India has strongly opposed the ADB's decision to provide further financial support to Pakistan. Government sources are indicating that India has shared its deep concerns regarding potential misuse of ADB resources. In fact, it has highlighted that Pakistan's tax collection as a share of GDP declined from 13% in FY 2018 to 9.2% in FY 2023. That continues to remain way lower than Asia and Pacific average of about 19%. The strange part is there has been significant increase in defense spending in the same period. Therefore, India has shown its deep reservation. In fact, has urged ADB to be vigilant and closely monitor the reforms measures being taken by Pakistan. Along with that, India has also urged ADB to be vigilant to safeguard the bank's financial health and long-term prospects.
All right, thank you, Prakash, for all those details. In fact, we also caught up with our defense expert, retired Major General S.B. Asthana, to decode Pakistan's bailout package from the Asian Development Bank. Let's listen into what he had to say.
If you are in a grey list, then the loans, then giving the loans becomes difficult. If you recall, they were there earlier in the grey list, and there were a restriction of loans earlier, at least twice they were there on the grey list. Subsequently, they were taken off from the grey list. And at the behest of so many countries, China as well as USA, as well as other Western countries. Now, this is, if we can somehow crack and get Pakistan into grey list, I think we will be able to perhaps technically be able to stop some of these fund flows which are getting into Pakistan.
Moving on to a news which was meant to be a day of rejoice and celebrate for the fans of Royal Challengers Bengaluru, but it soon turned out to be a situation of despair and sorrow. The Bengaluru Stampede strategy outside the Chinnaswamy Stadium reportedly killed 11 people and injured over 50 people. The incident occurred when a large crowd gathered outside the stadium to celebrate RCB's maiden IPL title win. The mishap in Bengaluru is absolutely heart-rending in the tragic hour. My thoughts are with all those who have lost their loved ones, and that was posted by PMO. Over the tragic incident. Chief Minister Siddaramaiah visited Vaidehi Hospital to inquire about the well-being of those injured in the stampede and offered condolences to the families of the deceased. The incident has raised questions over crowd management and arrangement of police deployment outside the stadium. The authorities were aware about a possibility of a huge crowd turning up to catch the glimpse of IPL winning team, and the fact that the things still went out of the hand, killing 11 people, demands some serious answers.
There are small gates. The people entered through the gates. They have broken the gates also. So stampede has taken place. Nobody has expected. I ordered magisterial inquiry, and I given 15 days time.
I think this is not a controllable crowd. Actually, I apologize for all the people of Karnataka and Bangalore. We wanted to give a procession, but the crowd was very uncontrollable. Yes. So we dropped that procession. So I appeal to excuse us.
To understand what the situation was like on the ground, Times Network's Karishma also spoke to BCCI Vice President Rajiv Shukla. Let's listen in.
It's extremely unfortunate incident which should not have taken place. And I know people are, they are in love with cricket. And all people in Karnataka, not only in Karnataka, throughout the country, they were happy after the victory of RCB. But that does not mean that, there should be so much crowd that people trample on each other and kill other people. It's very unfortunate. Karnataka government will definitely take whatever possible to help the people.
So listening to what Vikram Singh, former DGP UP, had to say about the stampede.
One would have expected a lot more from the organizers, from the sponsors, from the police, from the local administration. The Chief Minister has, yes, said something that is very mature, words that will heal. But at the ground level, these are sanctimonious platitudes that will not heal. Those who have passed away will not come back. And I do hope that he said that the investigative inquiry has been ordered. Nobody is doing any favor. This is something that is very basic and routine, a part of any police regulation, that when such an unfortunate tragedy happens, a investigative inquiry is ordered. But are we going to identify those who have faltered, those who left a lacuna in the security arrangements, and what consequences will? Something should have happened.
All right, let's also go across to my colleague Neha, who's joining us with more details from the ground.
Most unfortunate that even as 11 lives have been lost, at least about 45 people there injured. And despite that, now you have, of course, a blame game that's begun quite literally. While everybody may shirk off responsibility over here and say that it indeed wasn't, of course, their fault, the fact is that it is a very, very unfortunate incident. It is something that marred the celebrations to a great extent. Of course, while the celebrations and the victory celebrations still went on, the fact is that the Karnataka government, of course, has very clearly now come out and said that, yes, maybe, in hindsight, this could have been better planned. What is, of course, most shocking here is the manner in which the entire incident played out. We were there the entire day, watching it happen, watching that build up there, to this. Very, very unfortunate. The KSCA, of course, as well as the RCB franchisee itself, now we're being told from our sources in the government, would be made a part of this inquiry, of the magisterial inquiry that has been ordered. The government, of course, initially was caught completely off guard right in the morning itself when these announcements of the victory parade were made. There was no permission that was sought from the government, is what they say. Of course, while the government isn't commenting on that aspect of things, we'll really have to wait and see as to where things pan out.
All right, shifting focus to oil prices once again, that has slipped again after reports suggested that Saudi Arabia will push for more output hikes in August and September after the agreed upon 411,000 barrels per day hike last week. Ashesha is joining in to explain what this means. Ashesha?
Well, yes, oil market has been in focus for the last several trading sessions, especially after OPEC Plus announced output hike for the month of July. And now agencies have reported, citing sources, that Saudi Arabia is seeking another output hike in the month of August and September as well. Remember, this is a part of the larger scheme of things where they had announced voluntary output cut in 2023, which they've started unwinding from the month of April this year. So in April this year, they unwound about 138,000 barrels per day, followed by 411,000 barrels per day output hike in the month of May, June and now July, which was announced over the weekend. And now Saudi Arabia is seeking output increase of the same quantum in the month of August and September as well. If this comes through, this will be a major negative for the oil market. For now, agencies have reported, citing sources. We don't have any official confirmation, but if at all it comes through, it will be a negative because supply could increase in the oil market at a time when OPEC Plus says that demand continues to remain strong. In fact, Saudi Arabia aims to increase its market share, which it lost over the last 2 years. It says that it wants to optimize on the increase in demand, especially in the summer season, and that is why they are looking to increase their output. Apart from that, there's another news piece with respect to oil inventory, where oil inventory in the United States has fallen to the lowest level that we have seen since November 2024. This, of course, is supportive for prices, which means that demand is increasing. But for now, two separate news pieces, and oil market continues to be in focus on the back of that output increase, which was announced last week and likely to be announced furthermore.
All right, thank you, Ashesha, for getting us all those details while you track that oil price movement. But with that, it's time to take a very short break on this edition of Market Cafe. We'll be right back with more news and updates on the other side, so stay tuned.
पावर्ड बाय टाटा नमक, देश की सेहत, देश का नमक.
In association with SBI, be alert, be scam safe.
Indian markets are going to be getting a booster shot.
Hi, good morning. You're watching the market right here on ET now.
Indian markets are at an all-time high. You would really pinch yourself to say, is it the same market? All factors align wonderfully well for us.
Nifty is now up a staggering 2,000 points. That impacts the market mood like no other.
First rates will just start coming up on your screen. There's a lot of green on the screen today. I think you got the wrong guy.
It happens all the time.
You belong to the limelight. All new Tata Altroz. Feel special.
ये वाला दिखाना गया तेरा प्राइस मनी. कुछ इन्वेस्टमेंट भी कर लेती, आते समय कर लिया मोबाइल से. कहाँ? गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटीज में। हाँ, RBI रिटेल डायरेक्ट मोबाइल ऐप है ना। रिटेल डायरेक्ट स्कीम द्वारा इन्वेस्टमेंट यानी मैच्योरिटी पे गारंटीड रिटर्न्स, नो ब्रोकरेज, नो हिडन फीस। मान गए? आपको नहीं, ऐप को। RBI कहता है
जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
Like a tide to the shore, I keep coming back for more. My jelly won't set.
Our fridge is intelligent. Even more than that. AI-powered cooling that adapts to your usage. Godrej side-by-side refrigerators.
आज मेरा रिजल्ट आने वाला है। अम्मी कहती थी उन्होंने पढ़ाई नहीं की क्योंकि उनके बचपन में उन्हें बहुत दूर तक पानी भरने जाना पड़ता था। मगर मैंने तो बचपन से ही घर में नल देखा है और मैं तो रोज स्कूल जाती हूँ। अम्मी मैं फर्स्ट आई हूँ।
इस भारत ने बचपन से ही सुरक्षित घर परिवार देखा है। यही बेटियां बनेंगी विकसित भारत की कप्तान।
From tracking India's consumption sector to decoding the biggest market trends, I connect the dots between data, decision and disruption. From FMCG shelves to real estate skylines, from travel trends to consumer buzz, decoding what drives India's consumption engine. From tracking corporates, crunching data and breaking it all down live, real time for you. If you take a look at the Nifty gainers today, markets don't wait and neither do I. Catch me, Mishra, from Monday to Friday on ET Now.
प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी आज विश्व पर्यावरण दिवस के अवसर पर नई दिल्ली में करेंगे वृक्षारोपण। 200 इलेक्ट्रिक बसों को दिखाएंगे हरी झंडी। न्यायाधीश यशवंत वर्मा के खिलाफ चल सकता है महाअभियोग। सरकार राजनीतिक सहमति बनाने का कर रही है प्रयास। मॉनसून सत्र से पहले संसदीय कार्य मंत्री किरेन रिजिजू ने दी जानकारी। डोनाल्ड ट्रंप ने पुतिन से की फोन पर लंबी वार्ता। रूस के फाइटर जेट्स पर हुए हमलों के बारे में की चर्चा। पुतिन ने कही जवाबी हमले की बात। रूस यूक्रेन के बीच फिलहाल शांति की गुंजाइश नहीं। विदेश मंत्री डॉक्टर एस जयशंकर आज भारत मध्य एशिया बिजनेस फोरम को करेंगे संबोधित। सेंट्रल एशिया के 5 देशों के विदेश मंत्रियों के साथ करेंगे द्विपक्षीय बैठक। श्री राम जन्मभूमि मंदिर में आज होगी श्री राम दरबार की विधिवत प्राण प्रतिष्ठा। 101 आचार्यों द्वारा संपन्न होगा अनुष्ठान। और आइए अब समाचारों पर डालते हैं विस्तार से नजर। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी आज विश्व पर्यावरण दिवस के अवसर पर नई दिल्ली के भगवान महावीर वन स्थली पार्क में एक विशेष वृक्षारोपण पहल का नेतृत्व करते हुए पर्यावरण संरक्षण और हरित गतिशीलता के प्रति भारत की प्रतिबद्धता की पुष्टि करेंगे। प्रधानमंत्री एक पेड़ मां के नाम पहल के अंतर्गत बरगद का पौधा लगाएंगे। ये अरावली ग्रीन वॉल परियोजना का हिस्सा होगा, जिसका उद्देश्य 700 किलोमीटर लंबी अरावली श्रृंखला को फिर से वनों से परिपूर्ण करना है। ये परियोजना दिल्ली, राजस्थान, हरियाणा और गुजरात सहित 4 राज्यों के 29 जिलों में अरावली पर्वत श्रृंखला के आसपास 5 किलोमीटर के बफर क्षेत्र में हरियाली का विस्तार करने की एक प्रमुख पहल है।
Welcome back after the break. Let's shift focus to Asia Pacific markets, how they are performing. The actual 2 markets which are outperforming here. One is Australian markets. You can see just a flat opening, but I want on the screen Hang Seng, which is trading over 1%, and Kospi, which is continuing to trade over 1% after yesterday's gain of over 2%. Kospi rates, my apologies, are not updating on the screen. The actual data is 2,800 and it is actually 10 months high after the presidential elections. Yesterday it closed 2% lower and today it has opened more than 1.5%. But Shanghai is actually flat today, just barely in negative territory after Trump post which is coming for China. You can see just a flat kind of opening in Shanghai, but leading in the pack is Kospi and Hang Seng. And if you talk about Nifty implied open, that is barely 9 points up. When we started the show it was flat. So mixed kind of cues coming in from Asia. Even Nifty implied open is at the moment directionless.
That's right. While we are headed for a muted start as it seems, let's also shift focus to the e-commerce space. Now, Amazon has just added a little something extra to your cart, and it's not a deal. The e-commerce giant has quietly introduced a new 5 rupee marketplace fee. And yes, even Prime members are not getting a pass. Now, the move comes months after Amazon slashed referral fees for sellers back in March, a bit to woo more merchants to the platform, but now it is the customers who are feeling the pinch. Anjali filed this report on Amazon's latest charge that's sparking chatter across digital aisles.
Amazon India is rolling out a 5 rupee marketplace fee for all orders that are placed on the platform. Now, this fee is inclusive of taxes and will be levied on each order, irrespective of the cart size or the number of items in an order. And there are a few exemptions to this. So, Amazon business account holders, as well as orders placed for gift cards, Amazon Fresh orders, or orders placed on Amazon Now, which is the quick commerce vertical, those will be exempted. Additionally, any orders which is a pay on delivery or is a prepaid order which has some payment processing fee included, those will also be exempted. Now, Amazon says that this fee is being levied to ensure that the platform continues to bring the vast variety of items from millions of sellers to their consumers like they do. This is much in line with the larger trend of e-commerce and quick commerce companies either introducing or hiking the platform fees that they charge to their customers. Last year in August is when Flipkart, which is Amazon's biggest competitor, had introduced a 3 rupee platform fee for e-commerce website and a 5 rupee fee for the quick commerce vertical, which is Flipkart Minutes. And now Amazon has also begun charging their customers a flat 5 rupee marketplace fee on all its orders.
Thanks, Anjali, for that details. But moving on, PM Modi will be inaugurating world's largest railway Chenab bridge at Katra in JNK on 6th of June. Modi will also flag 2 Vande Bharat Express trains from Shri Mala Vaishno Devi Katra to Srinagar. My colleague Sameer Dikshit is joining in. My colleague actually spoke to Executive Director Information and Publicity, Ministry of Railways, on the preparation of the PM visit. Let's listen into what conversation they had.
Project is the Chenab Bridge. Chenab Bridge is one of the most prestigious, we can say, marvel of our country, constructed in the recent past. It is higher than even the Eiffel Tower and 5 times higher compared to the Qutub Minar. We have used more than 29,000 metric ton steel for constructing this bridge, and many of the villagers and the local villages have got benefited while we were doing the construction, because first time road connectivity was established.
In addition to this, we would like to understand when it comes to the rail connectivity, when it comes to bring tourism in this particular region, how this project and going forward the trains that you are planning to run, how this will give that momentum to the tourism and the rail connectivity.
Right now we are running 25 trains in the Kashmir Valley, and it is serving the people of the Kashmir. And now we have planned to run 2 Vande Bharat Express trains in this particular section. The train which has been developed for this section has some unique features also, like we have ensured that temperature inside the coaches will be maintained, and the ride will be comfortable even if temperature goes in the minus in that area. So that we have ensured, and state-of-the-art technology has been used in the Vande Bharat Express.
All right, then moving on, the Parliament is all set to chair the monsoon session from July 21st to August 12th this year. Now, this will be the first session after Operation Sindoor, and hence it is expected to be a key point of discussion in this session. Prakash filed this report earlier. Let's take a look.
Yeah, the monsoon session of Parliament is going to be commenced from July 21, a very significant development coming in, as it will be first Parliament session after Operation Sindoor. That holds a crucial political significance. Therefore, monsoon session of Parliament is going to be very crucial. Opposition parties have been demanding a special session of Parliament to discuss the involvement of a third party in a ceasefire as claimed by the US government. Therefore, it's a very crucial development and very crucial Parliament session. Along with that, opposition parties may press government to hold wider discussion on Operation Sindoor. As far as other political developments are concerned, we are given to understand that the government is likely to bring impeachment motion against Justice Yashwant Verma in cash recovery case during monsoon session of Parliament. A very significant development coming in. From business standpoint, sources are indicating that the government is likely to introduce insurance amendment bill during monsoon session of Parliament. Along with that, IBC amendment bill may also be introduced during the session that intends to amend section 31(4) of the IBC, where CCI approval will not be required under the IBC resolution process.
Thanks, Prakash, for those details. But with this, it's time to take a quick break. But don't go away. More news and updates will follow on the other side.
Welcome back to ET Now. You're watching Market Cafe with me, Kanishka, Sarkar and Ankur Mishra. Well, it's time to get you some more news updates. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is said to have chaired a key Council of Ministers meeting, urging his team to amplify the government's achievements from the past 11 years. Now, sources have also indicated to us that the PM stressed public outreach, with ministries showcasing policies and results that align with the vision of the developed Bharat by 2047. Prakash Priyadarshi is joining us on the phone line with all the details.
Yes, Prime Minister Modi had chaired Council of Ministers meeting, and the first meeting after Operation Sindoor holds some political significance as well, indicating that the PM urged ministers to actively convey government achievements over the past 11 years to the public. There was strong focus on showcasing policies, programs, and results through public outreach efforts. So indicating that several ministries have made presentation in the context of developed Bharat by 2047. In fact, presentation were made by the road and the railway ministries on major projects that could be achieved in next few years. Along with that, the PM also spoke about warfare and the use of indigenous technology in the defense sector. In fact, all the necessary support will be provided to the companies to boost domestic defense equipment production going forward. PM also urged ministers to focus on future goals, decide short-term goals and long-term goals, and then all the necessary support will be provided to the ministries and departments. Jal Shakti Ministry and Health Ministry have also made some presentations before the Prime Minister, and the PM has clearly stated that the offices should shift to the central vista for better coordination going forward. Back to you.
Thank you so much for putting into perspective that meeting, Prakash. But moving on, speaking on the sidelines of Bank of America 2025 Global Tech Conference, senior analyst Kunal Tayal says IT space looks attractively valued right now. And what are his projections for Indian IT going forward? Let's listen to what he had to say.
This is just a little bit deterioration. It seems to be much lesser than what was widely anticipated or viewed in the context of how the sector has performed in the last 2 years. That's number one. The second point is that the feedback also is that the uncertainty is here to stay. The movement you've seen on the tariff situation so far does not seem to be enough to sort of clear all of that away, and which is why the viewpoint is that the slight impact you're seeing is probably going to be around for another 2 to 3 quarters. So that's a view on the business side for the IT services sector. On valuations, look, I mean, in times like these when growth is slow, there's also the conversation around what will be the impact of AI on a go-forward basis. Very recently, we took a back to the basics approach on valuation, where our finding was that a DCF valuation for these names, if one assumes high single-digit growth rate for the next few years, is actually very supportive of a forward PE multiple, give or take, in the early 20s sort of a range, and the stocks are actually not too far from that. So I think, therefore, when we look at our picks in the sector, for us, this is really a combination of companies that can emerge as relative winners on the growth rates. Valuation across the sector seems to be in a pretty attractive zone. It's been at least tough last 2 to 3 years on the pricing front. The couple of parameters that we are looking at, look, after the sharp downtick which is already played out, there are signs, and this is as recent as what we saw in the last quarter, which is the March quarter, that incrementally there is some uptick which is starting to come by, and some news flow has it that it might sort of carry forward into the ongoing quarter as well. So there are early signs that the pricing environment might be getting less intense versus how it has been. On a more sustainable basis, if one were to take a view, ideally the utilization rate for cement capacity in the country, in our view, will have to sort of hit the 75% plus levels, and that is maybe a point in time when one can argue that a sustained trend in price increase could come by for the sector. So as of now, our view is that there is more like a near-term / opportunistic price increase that the sector is getting, which is good news after the trend of last 2 years. And of course, if the utilization rate is moving in the right direction, there's a chance that this could have a sustainable element to it as well.
All right, then those are the expert views about the market, but let's also shift focus to the economy. Now, the RBI could fire its third rate cut for FY25 on Friday as inflation cools and also demand slows. With growth outlook still blurry and a system flush with liquidity, a 25 basis point cut is what is being widely expected, with a total of up to 75 basis points expected by economists. Now, Varun Dubey is joining us to tell us what the street is penciling in.
The street is expecting a 25 basis rate cut in this policy, and actually a more 25 basis rate cut in the August policy. Now, the Reuters poll says that around 87% of the poll participants are expecting a 25 basis rate cut in this policy, and around 81% of the poll participants, they are expecting a rate cut in August policy. Now, what is fueling the rate cut? It is basically the GDP growth, inflation, the demand environment, and also the benign balance of payment dynamics. Now, let me take you first to the GDP numbers. If you look at the GDP numbers, though in this, the fourth quarter GDP numbers were better than expected, but yes, for FY25, if you look, the GDP numbers are actually at 6.5, and this is actually at 4 years low. Now, if you look at the inflation, because of better monsoon, it is expected that the inflation would be in the tolerance level of around 4%, which RBI wants. And actually, in the month of April, the inflation number was around 3.2%, and it was at the lowest level after July 2019. So this is another factor. If you look at the overall demand environment, no doubt in the second half of FY25, we have seen some demand revival, but still if you look, many of the indicators, they are indicating towards a slowdown. So this is also one of the reasons because of which many analysts on the street are expecting a 25 basis rate cut going ahead. But if you look on the liquidity front, no doubt there was issue regarding liquidity in the earlier months of this calendar year, but in the month of April and June, we have seen the overall liquidity situation actually improving, and that's the reason people are actually estimating that RBI will not actually put additional measures on liquidity. And also, if you look at the overall stance of RBI, that is going to be still accommodative. So it's going to be a good policy wherein we will see a 25 basis rate cut in this policy, but yet this is not going to be the last. Actually, the street is also expecting another rate cut in the August policy. So you are actually going to witness 50 basis point rate cut from here on.
Thanks, Varun, for those details. And it's day 2 of MPC today. We'll watch out for what actually Reserve Bank of India decides. But inflation trends remain benign as per Upasana Chachra on the sidelines of Morgan Stanley India Summit. She mentioned that expectations for rate hike cuts is actually there, which Varun was also mentioning. Let's listen into what Upasana had to say.
Looking at the domestic growth and inflation trailing data and also the outlook on the monetary policy side, we do have the view that it will remain decisively on the easing side. We've already seen RBI take those steps, change of stance to accommodative cut. 2 rate cuts have already come through. RBI has added a lot of durable liquidity in the system, and I think that will continue. So with the inflation outlook remaining benign, as I mentioned, you'll see readings closer to say 3.5% in the next few months. And even if you look at 1 year forward inflation forecast, they'll be pretty close to 4%. So RBI will be comfortable that inflation is durably aligning with its medium-term target of 4%. No changes to our growth forecast right now. We are expecting growth to be at 6.2% in fiscal 26 on an average basis. So I think we remain a bit cautious on the outlook or the path ahead, mainly driven by the risks that we see from external demand slowing and the repercussions that it may have on India's growth trajectory. But having said that, I think on a relative basis, the 6.2% that India is poised to post is likely to be one of the best growth markets that you'll see across economies, and probably the delta in terms of growth rate cuts or forecast cuts that have happened post all these disruptions on the trade tariff side, the reduction for India's growth outlook versus say 6 months back is also one of the least. So I think on a relative basis, the India story looks pretty good, and macro management is only improving the dynamics and the foundations of that. On the capex side, I think our view has been that for this year, government and household capex will be the key drivers or support to the overall capex line item. Private capex has seen, some segments see growth linked to infrastructure, government spending related or construction related segments, or PLI manufacturing, but it's not been very broad based. And if you again juxtapose the external demand outlook and the uncertainty that the changes in the trade and tariff policies have brought about, that do hamper the business sentiment, and as we've seen in the past cycles, again hamper the overall capex expansion plans.
All right, then let's shift focus back to the markets. Now, as we are penciling in a muted start for the Indian market today, Rabinder is joining us now with a list of stocks that we should be keeping on our radar that are expected to be buzzing in trade today. Rabinder, good morning.
Well, as Gland Pharma can be in focus, where France drug regulator has issued its final report citing 11 observations in pursuance of GMP inspection at Cenexi manufacturing facility, and the company said that there will be no disruption in the manufacturing operation due to its final inspection report. Moving to next, Power Grid can be in focus, where company has acquired MEL Power Transmission for 8.53 crore under tariff-based bidding route. So back of this, Power Grid can be in focus. Apart from this, Honasa Consumer can be in focus, where company has received its final approval for scheme of amalgamation from NCLT between Fusion Cosmetics Just 4 Kids Service Private Limited with Honasa Consumer. Apart from this, CESC can be in focus, where company's subsidiary has signed a 1 gigawatt wind turbine deal with Envision Energy, and the deal covers supply and commissioning of 1 gigawatt wind turbine generators, which includes 10-year operations and maintenance service post commissioning. And lastly, REC can be in focus, where board has approved raising 1.5 lakh crore through private placement of unsecured non-convertible debenture bonds. So back of this, REC can be in focus.
All right, thanks Ravinder for those details, and these stocks should be on your radar before opening of a trade. But let's shift back focus to Asia Pacific markets. How they are performing, you can see Australia's ASX 200 is now slipped into red after opening in the green. Similarly, if you talk about Shanghai, that was also trading under pressure, and it is almost flat to negative as we speak. But where is the green side? That is actually coming in from Hang Seng. If you see more than 0.5% up, yes, now closer to 1% as we speak. Hang Seng market is showing some kind of resilience, but the leader in the pack remains Kospi with over 2% gains. But even the Japanese market are now reeling in under pressure. Yesterday, there was data which was released on base pay where the expectation was around 1% or so, but actual data came in at 2.2%. So muted start in Japanese market as well, but Nifty Employed Open is showing 8 points premium as we speak. So mixed kind of cues coming in from Asia. Nothing major for Nifty Implied Open as well. So it looks like going to be a tough fight between bulls and bear when we start the market today. And let's also shift focus to a few more news and updates. Government's PSU stake monetization will go on as penned, says sources to ET Now. Merchant bankers and transaction advisors have almost been appointed, with the government looking to offload stake in at least 2 insurance companies. Prakash Priyadarshi joins in with those exclusive details.
Yes, an important development coming in as we're learning from our sources that the government will move ahead with diluting its stake in PSBs and financial institutions as per the plan. We're given to understand that the empanelment process of merchant bankers and transaction advisors has been completed. In fact, the engagement of selected bankers for a specific transaction will be valid for 2 years. Along with that, the sources are also suggesting that the plans are in place to dilute at least 5% government stake in PSBs and insurance firms by end of financial year 2026. A very significant development coming in. Along with that, the deadline to meet minimum public shareholding could be extended beyond August 2026. That could be extended by another year based on the market conditions. Along with that, as you are aware that the government has already approved rupees 10,000 crore fundraising plans by 5 PSBs. Some PSBs have in fact initiated the process. The sources are also indicating that it intends to dilute a stake in at least 2 insurance companies in FY26, including LIC in phases.
All right, thank you, Prakash, for getting us all those details. But let's shift focus to the auto space now. Let's listen into what Gunjan Prithyani, who's a senior analyst, Indian auto and auto components at BofA Securities, had to say about the auto ancillaries growth going forward in the country.
Other than tractor, we're really not seeing growth in any of the other subsegments, be it two-wheelers, PVs or CVs. And as we get into the next couple of months, it is a low season given monsoons. There is also very lack of new launches on the horizon, which would mean that we will sort of see these muted trends continue in the near term. So I think some case for consolidation in the near term. Having said that, I am actually not as negative. I do think as we get into the second half of the year, when you see launches picking up, you see rate cycle easing reflect, you've had income tax relaxations, I do think that we may have some recovery starting to come through in the passenger vehicle space as well. China decoupling or the reshoring that we're seeing, very early stages, but I think India does stand a good chance if we start to see some of the global auto companies look at India to diversify their supply chains.
Let's listen into what Gunjan, actually even as global markets grapple with uncertainty, Morgan Stanley is doubling down on India. Top strategist Ridham Desai and Chetan Ahaya, Jonathan Gartner, Upasana calls an oasis in desert backed by solid macro fundamentals, rising capex and resilient services sector. Here's why the investment giant remains bullish on India's growth story.
Earnings growth is right up there with the best in the world. And a key point we also make about the Indian financial system at the moment is that bond yields are not volatile. 10-year yields are very well behaved and actually trending downwards in India. And equity market volatility is now well below the average in global equities. The systematic investment plans, the SIPs, and other domestic flows kind of drive that. It's just a very strong story.
If you do a little bit more intrinsic valuation, stocks are cheap. And this is not something that people outside India have completely understood, which is why they are underweight. I think India is in this, is what I term as the oasis in a desert. I suspect as we go into the second half and beyond that, and there is some stability in US policy, corporate issuances will pick up. And that will give an opportunity for foreign investors to continue to engage in Indian stock markets.
India is relatively insulated to the extent to which its exposure to global goods trade cycle is much lower than everybody else. And at the same time, it has this structural domestic demand story, which is also much stronger than the rest of the region. And if you see the trajectory of Indian government, both center plus states taken together, revenue expenditure versus capital expenditure, both the lines are moving in the right direction. Over the last 5 years, we've seen a consistent decline in revenue expenditure to GDP, and that has been taken as an opportunity by the government to increase its capital expenditure to GDP.
With the inflation outlook remaining benign, as I mentioned, you'll see readings closer to say 3.5% in the next few months. And even if you look at 1 year forward inflation forecast, they'll be pretty close to 4%. So, RBI will be comfortable that inflation is durably aligning with its medium-term target of 4%.
All right, then moving on, let's get you some more news updates. In a plan flagged in an internal State Department memo and confirmed by a US official, the Trump administration is weighing a $1,000 premium processing fee for non-immigrant visa applicants, including tourists, seeking expedited interview appointments. Next up, the total number of active COVID-19 cases in India have crossed 4,000 on Wednesday. India recorded nearly 300 fresh COVID cases in the last 24 hours, with the highest number of cases coming from Kerala. Meanwhile, 2 more COVID-related deaths were recorded in the country over the last 24 hours, taking the total death toll tally to 7 for this year.
All right, with this, it's time for a wrap in this edition of Market Cafe. On behalf of Kanishka, me and entire 18 Hour team, thank you so much for watching, and do watch The Market, which is coming up next.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.